Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. This is episode 596. Got a great panel, got some great stories. I think it's going to be a great show. I'm going to let the panel quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll be straight in to the first story. John, my friend John Locke, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm John Locke from lockdownseo.com.
And I've got Sally as well. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yes. We have to wait for John a little. He's on Tranquility Base, and so there's an inevitable time lag. I'm Sally Getch, the WP fangirl, and today's token woman.
Right, there we go. We need that token woman. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I keep thinking of how low key.
You're going to set me off.
John is so low key today. I'm trying to do a John Locke impression. I'm Spence from WP Launchpad. We got our foreign correspondent. He's in the Netherlands or somewhere. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Andrew Farmer coming straight from the Cheddar Gorge in the beautiful English countryside, and I'm representing DivvySorted.com today.
Yes, I never know what URL he's going to use. We've got our guest. Got Vito returning. Vito, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Vito. I'm the founder of Atarim, which is a platform that helps web agencies and freelancers collaborate with their clients.
Oh, that's great. So let's go straight into it. If I can find my stories, that would be even better, wouldn't it? I'm all in a mess. Right. So, number one, profile rebrands a response to WP user avatar and now a membership plugin. User Revolt is from the Tavern. So, Sally, what did you think of this one?
As they mentioned in this, this is the second time it's happened recently. So WP user avatar, as Justin Tadlock says in the article, was a very simple one-task plugin. It let you upload your own image to use instead of a what do they call those things? Gravatar. And all of a sudden, it's now been turned into something called Profile Press, which is has a whole bunch of different settings, and it's basically meant to do a lot of additional things. And it's you get pushed to buy a premium option. So, there were 400,000 people who had this plugin installed, and it was a wee bit of a surprise for them. It might be fine for somebody who's, looking for something to do fancy user profile management, which people do often have a use for. But the lack of notifications to to users is irritating, and I think it's a reminder of what happens with our our stream of acquisitions that we've been seeing, that sometimes things are okay, they go well. For instance, I've generally been pleased with what WP Engine has done with Studio Press, because they've been able to put a lot of money behind development, and sometimes things happen after an acquisition that make people unhappy, either employees, hello, Freenode, or users, or all of the above.
All right. So, Spencer, I'm a little bit confused. Does it still do its original thing, or did they just plonk in a totally different... when I read the article, it didn't make it totally clear if it still does the original thing.
Not really. I watched this one in earnest because
I think I have two takeaways as a plugin author as well as a WordPress person all these years. The two takeaways are, number one, that if you're going to participate in this ecosystem, it's like a very small community where your reputation is everything. So even if you have to lay down on the road and let people run over you with their car, you're better to do that, take your licks, and come out looking like a hero or a martyr than you are to do what these guys did. It was a very, very poor choice that will cause them to suffer, I think, into the future, no matter what they do. Because what they did is they took a free plugin that was a very small utility. It just did one thing. It let you add an avatar. And they got another plugin, and they decided, oh, we have all these users on the free little utility. Let's one day do an update where we put the second plugin into the first plugin and essentially change the entire nature of what's going on. The second rule that one has to follow is, besides doing that, is to realize if you have a free plugin, you have the most picky, least loyal customers ever. There is an inverse proportion, if you looked on a graph, between how much money people pay and their behavior. And the free people will hang you by your own laundry line for any mistakes that you make. And that's what happened here. So the problem this particular guy did, who I've seen his face before, he's not a bad person, he's not doing anything like worse than Yoast, is he didn't handle it by going,
not a high bar.
Well, he didn't handle it like in a way that would have solved the problem. He could have said, oh my God, I completely screwed up, and revert the plugin back immediately. That's what he should have done. Instead, he decided to drive his truck into the crowd and see if he can just run everybody over in a full frontal attack. And he got what he deserved. And this is not going to end well for anything this person decides to do in the future.
Well, you, I thought, you've had some announcements with your launch flows recently, but I thought you did it excellently. I thought you did it the way it should be done.
Well, I'll give you the comparison.
Yeah.
Let me just use that example. But here's what happens. If you're going to go into the WordPress community, people have a long memory, especially the free people, the early adopter members. And by the way, hats off to Vito for other reasons, but for today, because Vito's little comments from months and months ago about why, Adarim did their free, their LTD had always stayed in my head, and I was looking for an opportunity. So I saw, after giving it further consideration, that the Launch Flows plugin was filling a niche that was not at the level of being the everything under the sun dashboard and so forth, but rather was one step below it. And then I was approached by some of my customers about this phenomena that, both Andrew and Vito were arguing for. So hats off to both of you guys. That LTDs seem to be a thing now in and of themselves, like people collecting, non-fungible, assets or something like that. And so what I decided to do was move the plugin one level lower, reduce the price 66%, but, and here's the but, I had to protect the hundreds of people who had already paid me $300 for a 1-year license. Now, I could have just stuck my finger up and said, hey, gave me your money. Instead, I said, everybody who paid me money, whether for a single site or not, becomes a lifetime person for free. That's it. Everybody who rewarded me by being loyal at first gets double benefit now, and everybody else gets the new deal. And that's what you got to do. You have to suck it up short term in order to be in a position where, I'm not saying I'm such a smart guy, I listen to everybody else here and everything else, but you have to be in a position to be Robin Hood, not King George or something like that.
Yeah. So Andrew, if the facts are correct, I don't think this was the smartest thing to do.
No, it wasn't, and it behoves me well, actually, because I've just acquired 23 plugins, one of which is free. The other 22 are premium, and the free plugin has got 50,000 active installs. So it would be remiss of me to go down that road as well, because I can add loads to it and change it and make it what I feel is better.
At least change the name to Andrew WP or something like that,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, I'll keep the names the same, but there are some things that can be added because they've added, the main theme that it's for has actually added it to the core. So, but they still haven't added all the functions that I think are right. But we seem to see these mistakes in this very small community that we've got. Everybody says the community of WordPress is massive, but actually it isn't. It's very, very small.
The people who participate actively is a small group.
Exactly. The active users are very small, and they are, like Spencer says, they are very quick to hit you over the head with a very sharp stick.
Well, yes, they get on shows like this and diss you if you.
Yeah, well, I do get the impression that this is most wanted in some ways. John, what did you? This seems to be a bit of a train wreck, John.
Well, here's the situation. When you have a plugin on your site and suddenly somebody changes it to something else, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like if you have your favorite couch in your living room, and then you leave, and then one day you come back and it's a totally different couch, and you're thinking, somebody was in my home and they changed this out. And what swapping out this one plugin for a totally different plugin, it introduces that seed of doubt. What else are you going to do to my site? Because if you're willing to swap out this one plugin for a totally different plugin, are you going to hack my site? What else are you going to do? That's why this
I can just imagine all my clients coming to me and saying, I looked at my site. What is this? Have I been hacked?
Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. Even with a free plugin, there's an understanding that it's going to be a certain thing. And when you totally change it without any notice, you're breaking that trust. And now you're making people feel like they can't even trust your plugin on their site because you might use something else that they don't expect.
Well, this is the whole problem of free plugins as well, because the community and in the totality never really worked out how you could have a free plugin that does something that's important for hundreds of thousands of people, and the author can just, what happens if the author has an accident, dies, or just decides they can't keep on supporting it? There's, it's up to the author to find somebody that's prepared to take it over. There's no...
Well, it happens to premium plugins. I took over another plugin. My nephew built it, and it was Comment Love. And it was a very, very big selling, 50,000 downloads a month or something when it was premium. It was ridiculous. And he got MS. So he kindly let me take that over. So it happens to premium plugins as well. And what people don't realize, or what they don't think, and we've talked about this before in the WordPress community or any kind of business community, nobody seems to have a disaster plan. And it does my head in. If I happen to pass away very quickly, then there is a plan in place. Or if I can't do my job for whatever reason, illness or some other horrible thing happens, there is a plan in place. So, and there are people that can replace me, not 100%, of course, but they can replace me the necessary parts. And this happens all over the world to people.
Yes, but, lots of us are bad at succession plans.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to story 2. Twitter may be working on a Twitter Blue, a subscription service that would cost around $2.99. What did you think of this one, Vito?
I think Twitter is working like a startup, and I like it. They keep exploring new options and new ideas all the time. I think that every time that I come and visit you guys here on the show, we have a new service that might be coming from Twitter, and I think this is great. They're still exploring, they're still trying to figure it out for themselves. Even though they are, one of the biggest social media platforms that are out there, they understand that it's not a guaranteed position, and that they have to kind of keep seeing what is going to work and where it's going to work. What I really like is that they're not going like completely out of their realm, you know, like Facebook, for example. Facebook goes all over, you know, or they don't.
Well, that's what cockroaches do, isn't it?
Yeah, but they kind of like try to figure out what can they build that will serve their users in a better way. Try to monetize some different channels without compromising on the experience that people are used to. These are great. This is a great culture by a good company, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost like they've had electric therapy, electric shock therapy. You know, it's been dormant in deep depression, and they've just been woken up recently. What did you think of this one, and John? Let's go for John. What did you think of that, then, John?
Yeah, so Twitter's been around for like a very long time, but they've only been profitable in the last 5 years or so. So now that they're slightly profitable, they got to monetize their user base more. So the edit button is something that a lot of people have been calling for a long time. I think if they do implement something like that, where you have an edit button, it should be something.
And
where
John,
yeah.
John, we know a lot of people that need that edit button, don't we?
Yeah. I think personally, I think it should be something where you can edit it for, 5 minutes or something like that, but not, like months down the line.
Well, the thing is, the internet is forever. If you really put your foot in it, somebody is going to have a screenshot of that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But some of the other things here too, with they've changed some things. They improved their photo cropping algorithm. That's a whole story to that as well. Introducing like a tip jar, basically like a little Patreon for Twitter. We'll see how this goes. I mean, I would probably pay just to not see ads. So that might be something worth having. But even if they get a little bit of adoption on that, it'll be beneficial for them.
And listeners and viewers,
it'd be wonderful if they incorporate, because they just bought Scroll, and the thing with Scroll was that it let you see things without ads by you would pay a little money for Scroll, and that would be distributed to the various publishers, and so you could browse ad free on those sites. And I had signed up for that and was paying for it, and it is useful, but it's sort of like, okay, so you have a tool that does that. Lots of us do find the ads on Twitter and most other places annoying, and if that $5 a month or whatever that I was paying for Scroll suddenly includes Twitter as well, that would be a very good thing.
Yeah. Hey, Spencer, they haven't made it clear that if you pay the subscription, you get the blue tick either. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Because that's infuriated so many people. They said, I've got all these followers, but you still won't verify my account. It seems a winner for them, really, doesn't it, Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a traditional history of ways that you can take a freemium product and monetize it. And a couple of them are in play here, some of which sound really good and some of them sound stupid. So the first way, which is not offensive, not annoying, would be something that is stroking people's ego. So you give them a special badge, and many people will be willing to pay $2.99 a month because look how precious I am and special I am. I got that, I'm a super user. That has been proven time and time again to be the best way to handle things like this, because it's like a really low key way for people to be different than other people in a way like putting a bumper sticker on the back of your car or something. The next way is a feature, which I like the idea of the editing. And for many people, that would improve what's otherwise been a traditional limitation. Where I start to feel like you're going off the track is when you start to implement annoyware for the purposes of squeezing people, where it hurts. When you make the platform intentionally unusable with advertisements or with, for example, as Sally was relating to, and I've been begging for somebody to listen for months, I love using my phone to catch quick news stories. But every single one of the publishers wants me to individually pay them like $1.99 a month to access the thing. I'm like, go F all of yourselves. Can't you figure out a way that I can just pay an intermediary one amount per month and get all your stuff? So can't you guys just finally consolidate in some general way where, you know, then you get a PC reaction if I read your thing? But like, that's what all the other media companies are doing. That's why we're seeing, you know, Netflix and Disney Channel and, God forbid, Paramount Plus, and like they're all deciding like we have all this content, we better all get together because people can only subscribe to so many services. So if Twitter were to do one or two, I would not use it because I don't use Twitter, but like I think a lot of people would pay for it. Number 3 would make the platform pretty unusable because they would then be forced in a position like the newspaper people of, just as soon as that thing scrolls up on my screen, I'm like, F you, I'm never going to read your article anyway, or I'll just go for free on my Safari browser and look up the title.
So what do you reckon, Andrew?
I think it's a good idea for some people, but I you know, I've got this opinion that I have, which you've all heard. I just don't care. I mean, you know, Twitter is full of people that kind of just complain every single day, and it does my head in. Just let's get some positivity on Twitter. It's just annoying that they're just complaining about everything. You know, they're complaining.
You mean you don't find people complaining on other social networks?
Do you mean you don't find it constructive and insightful, Andrew?
I do not. I think that Twitter is the height of negativity, and I'm guilty of that sometimes as well because it's just too easy.
This one place. It's not. This one place.
It also depends a bit on who you're following.
I paid to. Well, no, they now say, you know, I've unfollowed and I've unmuted hundreds of accounts, and because they just give me, because you interacted with that, they, you know, you might like this, and I just and they give me stuff that I just don't, that my followers are commenting on. I don't want that. That's Facebook. I don't want that. I want you know, good commentary. I like the politics and everything, but it still is just annoying. But so I would pay for it just to get rid of the annoying things. Like the advertising never bothers me. I've always been accepting of Facebook advertising and accepting of Twitter advertising, because that's how you monetize the platform. If you're going to give me something for free, I expect to pay for it somehow, either in my data, my demographic data, or the fact that I'm going to see an advert. So what? You know, to scroll on.
Well, yes, but it's not the existence of ads that's a problem. It's when the ads get to the point where you cannot actually read the content.
Well, I don't think I've ever experienced that, Sally. You know, it's just I see an ad and I scroll past it. I just ignore it. You know, it's just a
well, it's on Twitter and Instagram, they're not that bad. You can scroll past, or you can say, "Hey, I don't like this ad." But you know, if you go to most news sites, as Spencer was saying, the ads are, you know, scroll jacking. Yeah. You can't read what they're saying, and so, you know,
the video pops up on mobile. You can't even hit the GDPR link to say, "Yeah, I accept your cookies, you idiots," you know. And I get that, but for, you know, I thought we were talking about Twitter. You know, Twitter paying $2.99 a month, that's fine. But if I love Spencer's suggestion, the telecoms companies do it, the TV companies do it. Why can't the newspapers get together and say, this is we even form their own company to manage that process of, you know, Spencer pays $1.99 a month and he gets all this content without adverts and
I
without
suspect there might be a law against them doing it with their own company, but somebody.
I'm surprised nobody's done it. I mean, as a third party, there must be some old school problem or political problem that's existing that we just don't understand as to why there isn't a third party company that's gone out and gotten all the individual publishers to cooperate.
Well, funny enough, that's
your startup suggestion.
Well, funny enough, there's in the autobiography of Steve Jobs, he spent quite a while talking to the publishers of these newspapers because it was obvious to him that Also, he obviously saw it as a way of Apple making some more money. And he spent ages talking to these publishers, and he gave up. He said they're it's like trying to herd cats. It's just totally impossible. So even his negotiation
You need
skills.
a Spotify for newspapers, don't you? That's what you need. A Spotify for newspapers.
That's what you really need. Yeah, you're spot on, Andrew. And that's what I thought. That's what I think he was trying to develop, but he never got anywhere. We're going to go for our break. When we come back, we've got some more great stories. Coming back. On to the next story. Accessibility advocates sign open letter urging people not to use Asset B and other overlay products. I've just got such mixed feelings about this.
Didn't you interview the founder of this?
I think I did, but I've interviewed so many bloody people. I've been doing this for 5 years. My God. Spencer, what do you? I just really got such mixed feelings about it.
Well, what I read from the article makes a lot of sense to me, and that is that the people who are wanting to have accessibility built in natively are going to be hampered in their efforts, and the rest of us are going to suffer if companies, this is ironically sort of like what we were just saying, but for a different reason, if companies crop up to solve the problem by using an overlay or an intermediary software. So what's happening is this accessibility is essentially software that's being loaded at various hosting companies or servers or whatever in order to solve all of the accessibility problems dynamically. The problem is the software adds this gigantic layer of crap that screws up everybody else's ability to use the platform properly. And I think it's annoying the advocates of regular accessibility, because then it gives the authors or the site owners an excuse to just beg off on not fixing anything at the core level. So it's sort of like a third party.
It's a little worse than that. It's actually, not necessarily making the websites more accessible.
Well, it's like a mobile wheelchair ramp company that like runs around when there's a person in a wheelchair and there's a big staircase. They immediately show up with a ramp or something. I mean, it's just an impractical way to fix the overall. How about you just build the ramp?
Well, but it's also, it gets it wrong when it's trying to fix it. And they've made a lot of promises about, protecting yourself from lawsuits and will always blah, 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 blah. And, I have seen so many articles out there about basically accessibility got me sued, blah, blah. And, and not having been there, you don't know exactly what the situation was in every case, but it seems like it's dangerous, not just because it's a kludge, but because it can do the opposite of what it's promising to do.
Yeah, but I think the reason why I was in two minds about this, I think Spencer and yourself explained this quite clearly, and it's not the greatest idea. But the problem is that I think WordPress supposedly now drives 40% of all websites. Obviously, I've got a bit of insight with Moulton and some other people who approached the great leader when we were going down this jolly road of Gutenberg. And they said it might be an opportunity to actually build accessibility tools into the core WordPress. That they go away, we got better things. We got better things to do than that. We don't think that idea is a very good one. And basically, WordPress, what the tools out there are pretty crummy, aren't they? And it should be a lot easier in 2021 to make something that's reasonably accessible, you would have thought. What do you reckon, Andrew? Oh, we can't hear you, Andrew. Okay.
If every web page was AMP, wouldn't that solve the problem with screen readers?
I don't know, actually.
Only if it's
because that's just text, right? So my blind person that tests my websites for accessibility as much as possible, she has this screen reader that reads a zillion words a second. You know, it's just incredible how fast she listens to it and everything, and navigates the keyboard, you know, navigates around using the keyboard and stuff like that. I would have thought that AMP would have solved that issue if you're just looking for a screen reader. Where we get the difficulties are the Domino's had an issue where the perfect description of the pizza wasn't there. And if you're putting the problem I have with accessibility is if you've got loads of product images and everything, and you want to particularly explain what that image is in fine detail, that's going to increase the weight of the website, and then we've got core web vitals out the window. So there's accessibility is a really difficult
I don't think alt text increases the weight of your website as much as actual big pictures do.
I'm not talking about alt text. What the Domino's court case was about is that this person couldn't understand the description of the pizza, wanted to know every single ingredient, wanted to know the nutrition, wanted to know the calorific value, wanted to know everything. If you put that on every single e-commerce website with a product image, and you have to describe that product image perfectly, you are going to increase the weight of that website. I don't care what you say, alt text or not, it's going to increase the wording on that website a zillion times. So with accessibility, we have to be really cognizant of what our users want, and we have to be cognizant of core web vitals, making the website load fast, and of the effect on SEO. And I think John will have some comments on that because he's like an accessibility advocate as well. I think every website should be accessible, but I think that I thought that AMP would get over that, to be frank.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know. Does it solve the problem of the people who create their buttons by saying div instead of button? Because navigating on the keyboard, if you've got your headings all screwed up and so on, if you're not using HTML properly, it impairs the ability of people.
Yeah, but I think we got to live partially in the real world here, Sally, with page builders like Gutenberg, like Elementor, Divi, the host of them. The actual situation has got, you have a load of people.
Right. Well, WordPress core can't control all of it because exactly like how accessible is what this.
Well, no, even if you've got somebody,
creates.
even if you got hired a freelance developer like yourself that spends a lot of time, the situation, if you're building it around a page builder or you're having to implement a page builder, after about 3 weeks with the client hacking away with it, it's probably been turned into a mess anyway. So the situation's actually got worse. So you need some technology like what Andrew's just pointed out, because the idea that you're going to be able to do this on the development stage to some degree when you've got all these page builders is a delusion as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, part of it is because when the client wants the developer to make sure it's accessible, it's like, okay, I tested the site as it's launched, it's accessible, but accessibility is a content issue. And unless the person who's adding the content understands about adding content, and unless the page builder is designed so that if it inserts it'd
be much better.
Link, it works properly.
It'd be much better that you had these AMP tool and somebody that knew what they were doing at the initial stage, and it would actually be a good way for Google to make AMP more popular. What do you reckon, John?
Add unmute there. Okay, so what I'm reading from the people that I know in the community that do rely on accessibility, people who are, blind or however else impaired, the problem is accessibility and all these other overlay tools that were mentioned. I think there's, like 9 or 10 of them. They don't actually create accessibility. It's like faux accessibility. And the people that were in the comments that were arguing, you know, people sue if our sites aren't accessible, and then you're going to put the poor owners like out of business, and then what will happen? And we don't want to pay to make things accessible. I think a lot of this like really has to come back on people who are developing sites and making sure that there's, you know, some sort of accessibility in it to begin with. And maybe that has to do with the tools that you use or the way that you build the site. But there should be some sort of basic, you know, accessibility testing before you launch a site. You know, that's just my, you know, stance on that. You know, if you can go through your site and navigate it with the tab, you know, check it for, you know, run it through WebAIM. And, you know, it's not that difficult. People are making it out to be, I think, a little bit more difficult than it seems to be. But there is a point here, and that is, unless people sue, people don't take accessibility seriously, because they see disabled people or people who are blind or deaf or have mobility issues. They see them as second-class citizens, or maybe even, you know, just
if they see them at all.
If they see them at all, and that's the problem. That's a lot of people. And because here's the thing, disability can happen to anyone. Anyone who is able-bodied right now, this can happen to you. So this is one, you know, segment.
Well, it's not actually disability. It's easy use with a population that's getting older. In most Western countries, the population of people in the next 10 to 15 years that are going to be over 65 is going to massively increase. So it would be kind of beneficial to have something that's easy to use.
I mean, like, you know, my friend who has arthritis and she has trouble with using a mouse or a trackpad, and especially anything that relies on a zillion different little gestures, that when you can't control your hands very well, you know, you're always accidentally doing things that you didn't.
I have that problem after a couple of scotches, actually.
I have a different suggestion besides John's issues. John, you're going to be helped by what I'm going to suggest next, which is applicable to any of us elderly people, or people with disabilities, or people who have accessibility issues. And that is, what I'm already experiencing is the frightening reality that we talk about all the time, where the AI, along with the other voice and in some cases Braille and other interfaces, will take over this problem, but not in a way by fixing the janky, let's stare at a screen and use a keyboard. If you really think about it, I don't know if you've experienced it, but like I was talking a couple of weeks ago about how they've got the, you know, my voice is in the digital realm. Then there's this thing,
your ladies'
faces. You're going to be a person who, like me, you know, if I'm not able to use the keyboard or see the screen, hopefully I'll just be able to talk, and my avatar will translate it for me, or my avatar will read it to me, or it'll say it to me, or it'll vibrate it in my fingertips or whatever. I think that's going to happen a lot faster than us using like all the tools to fix our wooden wagons. You know what I mean? Like the wagons are going to be replaced by the cars and replaced by the spaceships faster than they're going to fix the wagons. And that's just where we're at.
Well, you know, in the meantime, we've got all the people who have these issues. And like Jonathan mentioned, it can happen to anyone as you get older, or maybe you just get in a car accident. You know, you get an illness. There's any number of things. Anybody who is able-bodied,
you break your arm and you can't
just like that.
I'm not saying that
for a while.
I'm not saying at all that it shouldn't happen expediently. What I'm saying is we've got a legacy since the 1980s, early 90s of all these wooden wagon wheel interfaces to get on the internet and all the websites and all the content, HTML even. I'm saying rather than assuming we're going to get the problem solved by fixing that, I think it's better to assume that we're going to have leaps and bounds accessibility devices that come in that even, you know, I wear all kinds of devices, my glasses and hearing aids and this and that and whatever. And it's like those things solve problems faster.
Is it going to be for free? Is it going to become as the basic part of the website, or is it going to be something where people are charged money to have these?
I think the websites will go the way of these other things. Like, for example, one device that I use all the time with my iPhone is when I want to do stuff with my girlfriends here, right? Like my Siri or my whatever. I have them on the phone, but because I'm able to talk through my headset, I just talk to them and I'm like, oh, add this to my shopping list or call this person or do this thing. Because to me, that's easier than trying to use the keyboard or whatever. That's a small issue. With my tinnitus and ringing in my ears, I've got devices that set a certain amount of adjustment to the background noise and this and that. When I have to do things with my schedule, I have things that automatically tell me when to do stuff. I'm saying I don't rely as much on the old keyboard screen, go into a website method, which is where this problem lives. And I'm not saying that we should ignore accessibility. I'm saying the solution.
Well, actually, accessibility is a problem that lives all over our environment.
Accessibility is like, let's change the tools that let people who have whatever the reason for it, accessibility problems, get the same fair shake, but do it in a way that like brings a new solution in, not like trying to fix the old solution.
All right, fair enough. So, Vito, what's is there any laws in the UK that kind of enforces usability of websites and that?
There are, but it's not as advanced in some other places. I think that it needs to be like, so going back to this to the article, and even though this is a very interesting discussion, I think that this problem should be solved by technology and through automation, because it's such a complex topic for web designers that are going into this space, and because this is really out of the reality. I agree with you guys. It's you know, I'm not discounting the importance of it, but it is out of our reality as people that don't have these disabilities. It's
yourself not having any disabilities.
I'm talking about myself. Fortunately, I don't have any disabilities. It doesn't mean that I don't put alt tags. I do put alt tags, but it's still, I don't experience the website like people that do have these issues, and so it's very hard to put to get into someone else's shoes when you need to actually do all kinds of things.
That's why you hire the people who have the issues to help you with it.
Right, but not everyone can do that, Sally. And most websites on the internet don't have the resources. The vast majority of the websites on the internet, I would even argue that 99.5% of the websites on the internet.
Yeah, but it's even. But as I was saying, Vito, the situation's even worse than it was a few years ago, because with all these page builders, you could set all this up, and then one month later, they're hacked.
Sliders, and you used to have a bunch of stuff that are very counterproductive for accessibility, and now the Resident Evil is the page builder. I don't know, but like it's definitely something that they can help and solve on their part. I do think that using a page builder for less experienced designers is going to give them a better result than trying to HTML the hell out of the page themselves and get it right, So it does take it actually a step forward. It does give you a place to put the alt tag, so you remember, instead of remembering after the image equal to also add an alt equal, So it does make accessibility accessible, but I do think that this is definitely something that can be solved through technology. Maybe these guys haven't gotten to this place yet. I think that instead of coming against them with an open letter and like a public outburst, offer your help. You're already wasting time going against them. Might as well help them do it.
Well, we don't know to what degree people tried to speak to them privately about the issues.
Right.
Maybe they did.
They're trying to solve a problem, Sally. They're trying to solve a problem.
Yes, and I don't think it's bad to try it. And I do think technology is going to have to play into some of it, of analyzing and so on. But what it might be good to do on the WordPress side is have some kind of a setup, find that automation so that they could say, check plugins being submitted to the repo for, well, what kind of, stuff do you output? What kind of, is it, accessible to use your plugin? And that's not a thing that there's enough available individuals to do. But often, you can discover issues because your actual users will run into them. Not so much, that you always have to, that you necessarily have to hire a team that can cover all the bases for accessibility testing.
Right.
Do you think, though, after I saw a couple of accessibility people talk on a few summits that we've experienced over the last few months, and the websites that this lady was showing were pretty plain.
Yeah.
So, and they were very accessible, and they were government websites, so they had to be. But so, does accessibility take out design options?
No,
I think
it really doesn't.
Really? What do we do about sliders? What do we do about big images? What do we do about HTML5 animations? What do we do about SVGs? What do we do about videos?
HTML5 is actually pretty accessible as it is, and SVGs can be more accessible than other images because you can actually include text in them.
Right, let's move on. Before I go on to the next story, I want to talk about one of my other sponsor, Conversio. Conversio is a WordPress-only hosting provider in the real performance area. If you've got a website or a client website that really does need almost enterprise-level performance 24/7 with a truly integrated hosting platform, you should go and have a look at Conversio. They really do have a fantastic interface. The owner of the business showed me the back end and some of the technology that they're utilizing. I was really impressed. The other thing, beloved listeners and viewers, they have offered a really fantastic deal just for you. If you go to the WP-Tonic website, on all the pages, podcast posts, there will be a banner that will take you to the Conversio website, to a particular landing page. You fill in a form there for one of the packages, you will get 30% off for the lifetime of that package. It is quite an amazing deal. So I suggest that if you've got a performance site near the enterprise level or enterprise, that you go over and look at Conversio. Right, on to the next story. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. How Tim Cook agreed to hand over data of all Chinese Apple users to the communist government. What did you think of this one, Spencer?
Ni ha!
Hey, oh, sorry. Oh, dear.
Tim Cook. The problem here is that Tim Cook single-handedly has destroyed. By the way, that means hello. I'm not.
I didn't know that.
Ni ha. Tim Cook has single-handedly destroyed a 25-year legacy of everything that Apple stood for, and I don't hold him personally accountable because he's.
I do. I totally hold him personally.
Let me just say what I feel, and then you can jump on it. But I'm saying, Tim Cook is not the rebel that Steve Jobs was. He never will be, and I don't think he ever purported to be. But the difference really makes itself clear with things like this, because Steve Jobs would have made it his every waking moment thing to screw the Chinese 6 ways to Sunday and get them to bow to him, not the other way around. Whereas when you combine this with things like right to repair issues and all the hardware that they've doubled back on, and trying to sell the color of your cable on your new iMac as a upgrade feature, I've just washed my hands of Apple. I have an iPhone and I have a 2015 MacBook Pro, but I have zero interest in anything else they do. Even though I think the M1 chips are interesting and there's still a couple things here and there, just lack of respect for their consumers.
Yeah, I'm not quite
It's
there,
just-
but because I think I tarnish them with all the same brush, really. But it's the hypocrisy of
That's
Tim
what I
Cook.
mean. There's lack of
Tim
respect.
Cook trying to lecture the cockroaches of Facebook, and then it comes out that he's peddled the whole of users' information to China, to this awful government. The hypocrisy of this
That's
guy.
right. We want you to have privacy unless you're Chinese.
It's unbelievable.
You saw the percentage of the revenue that came from China, right?
Yes.
I mean, the problem we have in corporate America right now, which is reflected by this and other things, is if you look at the line of general wages and then you look at corporate profits, they had been tracking each other proportionally at the same angle for decades and decades since World War II. And only in the last 12 to 15 years has the corporate profit line went like a moonshot vertically, because corporations have now put shareholder stock return over everything. And that's clearly the nature of what's going on here. Apple has $100 trillion in the bank. They don't have to bend over to the Chinese government other than to please the shareholders. And they're doing it. And there's nothing that's going to stop them, because all the people who make the decision are seeing their Apple stock go up, including.
So, Vito, how can Mr. Cook think that lecturing Facebook about protecting data's information and then shafting all your Chinese users, he's not an absolutely walking, talking joke? What do you reckon, Vito?
I agree. I think that, and I also agree with Spencer with what you said. Like, since with Steve Jobs, really, it's a company that has lost its founder, and the founder is a founder by definition. The position of a founder is to define the vision, to define the culture of the company that is being built. It's not a CEO position. It's a different position. And now they have a CEO, so they're making financial decisions, and they're kind of like doing whatever they make sense to the audience or to the market that they're working in, or to the investor that they work in. But Steve Jobs was not a CEO. He was a founder. He had his own values and his own culture that he distilled into the company, and his own vision. And that is very much lacking in Apple. They already lost it when they kicked him out and they brought in a CEO. I don't think they really understand the difference between the two positions, and it's a completely different position to be in, a CEO and a founder. So until they found a founder, I'm with you, Spencer.
Do you know that the Apple refused? Remember, they refused to help the FBI and the CIA. They wouldn't bow to those.
They wouldn't help them, would they?
But they bowed to the Chinese, which is indicative of, again, look to the revenue that would be lost. The FBI and the CIA are not going to help them make more money in the United States. Go fuck yourself. But the Chinese government says you're not going to sell any Apple products here. It's like, hold on, Tiger. Let's see what we can do about this. That's all it is. It's
or make any Apple products. They make, Apple products are made in China, right?
Yeah,
well, I mean, that's a problem too. They made
everybody's
the
products
they
are made
removed the
in
label
China.
made in Cupertino, California, because the Chinese government made them do it. And it's like, I think they understand that they could easily lose access to all their manufacturing.
I also, before I pass it on, I linked this to an interesting thing that Jason from This Week in Startups, he's doing a daily show. I put the link into Slack, I did. And he was talking about cryptocurrencies and about how a certain group of pundits on Twitter, Reddit, and other platforms say that cryptocurrencies are going to protect people in China from the Chinese government. And he just laughs at this naivety where he points out that, you're dealing with a government that literally will do anything to protect its interests. And the idea that it wouldn't just lock down cryptocurrency overnight when it wanted to is so freaking naive. It's unbelievable. And I just think Apple is in just a really difficult spot, because not only they would lose a ton of money, but their production, the Chinese government soon put the squeeze on them. And this is the problem where you have all your production just based in China. If you're dumb enough to do that, you're going to be under the thumb of this government, basically.
Well,
and
everyone is going to do it because the corporations basically want free labor.
But there are consequences.
And the Americans want cheap stuff.
But there is consequences. The consequence if you cross the Chinese government.
We don't use Apple products in the UK, sorry.
I personally don't have any Apple products.
We don't use Apple products in the UK, Sally.
Yeah, right.
So, John, do you think that, what amazed me about this story is that Mr. Cook chose and Apple chose to get into Barney about, protecting user information with Facebook, and then 1 week later that they've just thrown all their users in China down the plug hole. What do you reckon, John?
So I'm not totally familiar with this story. I am familiar with previous things that they've done as far as censoring search results, censoring websites to be able to be in Japan, storing private information from Chinese users on servers that were in China. And I'm not so sure that this would be different if Steve Jobs were alive, quite honestly. Because at the end of the day, it's what the stakeholders want and the shareholders. And at the end of the day, it's all about making money, as much money as humanly possible for the shareholders. And quite honestly, I don't know that American consumers or European consumers are willing to pay even more for Apple products than they currently are if they were having these phones and tablets and computers manufactured in the US or in Europe. Or
funny enough though, John, also there's a long history of this. Wasn't it IBM that sold the Nazi government the computer technology that enabled them to exterminate 6 million people more effectively? Wasn't it Ford and Chrysler that? Go on.
And Hugo Boss got started making uniforms for the SS, and that's it. Like these companies are going to survive no matter what. These companies are going to outlast governments always. So,
and what made me laugh, there was some Ford and Chrysler factories that they built just before war was declared in Germany, and when after 6 months after the war, they had the audacity to claim the cost of those factories to the US government, and the US government actually paid out.
Well, hey, like Henry Ford was anti-Semitic. That's a widely documented fact. And
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I would say he was a raving nutter, be quite truthful about
But here's the thing. Okay, so that's what it comes down to. Like your consumption of capitalistic products is not. There's no way to really do it ethically, because everybody's got something. Google is the same situation. So whether you have an Android phone or whether you have an iPhone, you're still going to be faced with the same moral dilemma. There's no ethical way around this.
Yeah, but you can put pressure on these companies and let them know that what they're really about. That's all as an individual you can really do. All right, so I'm going to drop the other stories because this can't go on like War and Peace. But I want to talk about, before we go into our recommendations of the week, I want to talk about a webinar that me and Spencer Forum are doing on the 11th of June. It's going to be all about how to use launch flows with another group of key plugins. I'm going to let Spencer explain a little bit better what we're going to be discussing in this great webinar. Over to you, Spencer.
Yeah, I'm going to put it here in the comments for those who want to go. So we're on episode 3 as the Star Wars trilogy, but we started back in April and we did how somebody can create a modern WordPress membership site using a small stack of tools that allows you to have the foundation you need so that in the future you don't have all the problems that are traditionally coming from one or more plugins that kind of collide with others. And we talked about how to identify your stack of plugins using our free discovery tool at WP-Launchify.com. Then we talked in the last episode how to configure your stack, which, by the way, John, you were incredibly intuitive on some of the things that people need to focus on and so forth. And then in this third session, we're going to talk about how to actually launch it, including these psychology tricks and strategies where in today's world, marketing automation means you don't spend all your time in the busiest channel of email. You use email just as a complement to getting people to know the exact place and time to show up for various things available in your WordPress website so that you can track their behavior and customize further their journey, which makes them happy because you don't waste their time. It makes you happy because you get happier customers, lower churn rate, and a higher rate of return on any advertisement or other efforts you're putting. So if you want to come by, these are very short. We were done in like 45 minutes. The 2 first episodes are there. Give your email, not so I can spam you, but because I'm going to send you the link right before the time that we're on live.
Reminder. We just remind you to sign up. It's all in the show notes of all the episodes. You go to the WP-Tonic and you go to one of the podcasts. It's always in the show notes right in front of you.
Right.
You sign up and Spencer will send you a reminder just before and you can join us and ask some questions after the presentation.
I'll come to your house and knock on your door.
There we go. So on to our recommendations of the week. Let's start with John. John, you got anything you want to recommend?
Yeah, so this is a podcast episode from the Google search team. This is called Search Off the Record, I think is the name of the podcast. This episode is what if speed was a ranking factor? And what they do is they sit down and they talk about a fictional search engine. And they say, if we were going to start this new search engine, figure out how we'd approach speed as a ranking signal, how would we do this and why? So this will give you a little bit of insight into how they might evaluate different sites.
Right. I forgot my recommendation. My recommendation is an alternative to Gmail. I had a client ask me about this, and they said they really wanted to get away from Gmail because what Google does with all your Gmail information. I scratched my head and then I found Fastmail. Fastmail, I think, is a really good alternative. It's only about $3 a month, so it will cost you, but it's not a ridiculous amount. And I think they also give you a bigger discount if you pay yearly. And it's pretty secure, all based on open source. And you won't be giving all your personal information to Gmail. That's not a bad idea, is it? Over to you, Spencer. Have you got something you want to recommend?
And I'm sure they won't sell that to China.
Who knows?
If I can do a personal plug, because we started with it, anybody who has WooCommerce or interested in selling anything WooCommerce, we are now offering, Vito and Andrew both get to say, I told you so, but we are now offering a special lifetime bundle on the product, and we've reduced the product 66%. So if you're looking for a utility that solves 5, well, there's really about 100, but 5 key problems with anybody doing WooCommerce, I think we've hit the sweet spot because we just launched it maybe yesterday, and the response has been apparently more than even I could have imagined. And I think I'm going to attribute it to, number one, it allows people off the hook of which things should I use, because now it's no longer a choice of A or B. Now it's I can have my A and I can add this as a B. And the second is the price point makes it really almost impulse buy level, where like when you're checking out at the grocery, you grab the candy bar and the magazines and the AAA batteries. So for yourself or your clients, for $300, you can have this tool that fixes so many problems on anybody who's using a WordPress WooCommerce combination site. So it's at launchflows.com. If you have any questions, you can reach me there.
Yeah, and we've used it on a couple of sites and we've been really happy with it, listeners and viewers. I highly recommend Spencer's product. And I think it's a really smart move that you've done, Spencer. I think it's really, and you did it in a really great way. Vito, got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yes, I would like to recommend a physical event, which is kind of rare nowadays, but it's awesome that these things are coming back. So Christina Romero, she's the queen of care plans within the WordPress space. She's bringing back her physical event, which is called the Recurring Revenue Retreat. Last time it was in Disney. And now it's still in Florida, but it's like, it's going to be like in a proper resort, a couple of days of learning how to build an agency, how to structure everything. It looks awesome. I wish I could attend. I'll probably be there next year, but for everyone that is in the area of Florida, I think that's amazing.
That's great. Thanks for that. Andrew, got anything you want to recommend, Andrew? Can you hear me?
Well, it's just incredible that Vito mentioned that, and I really promise you, even though we talk every day. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Andrew.
Was this your planned recommendation also, Andrew?
I'm going to recommend Focus. Yeah, okay.
Oh, he's having difficulty. Our foreign correspondent has broken up, listeners and viewers.
I know he's going to recommend, so I can do his recommendation.
He's got it in the shows.
The Chinese government has discovered his iPhone IP address. And
exactly. There we go. Let's see if he comes back. This guy
he was saying focuswp.co was what he was recommending.
Yeah.
All right.
Stephanie does amazing. Well, her service basically is devs for hire for overflow of work within agencies and for agencies and freelancers. So this is great if you're not in the stage where you need to hire, but you do need a vetted developer to help you with some additional features. That's what Stephanie does at Focus WP.
Oh, there we go. Sally.
Those images are just like eye bleeding. But it does sound like a good service. I'm going to recommend the Services and Pricing Guide Canva template from Carmen Kendrick Creative. Carmen spoke to our meetup this past weekend about how she has developed this very extensive guide for, mostly for freelancers and agencies that helps lay out the process of building and the cost of different things, and so that people know what to expect, and so that also if you get an inquiry, some random person asks you something, you can just send this to them, and it will help get rid of the tire kickers because it makes it clear. Carmen basically won't build a website for less than $10,000. So if you want to increase your rates and profitability, it seems like a good thing, and it's already been put together as a template, so you can work with it.
Oh, our foreign correspondent. We actually, Vito actually did your recommendation, Andrew, for you. He's gone again. So let's get this show finished. Spencer, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Well, today I'm going to switch it over to launchflows.com.
Rightio. And Vito, how can people find out more about you and what you are up to?
Check out atarim.io or join us at the Facebook group and just search Atarim and you'll find us.
That's great. John, how can people find out more about you and what you are up to?
LockdownSEO.com.
And Sally, how can people find out more about you and what you are up to?
Well, I'm either at Sally Getch or WP Fangirl pretty much everywhere. And I urge you, if you are, for the period that we're going to be remote, do check out the East Bay WordPress meetup on meetup.com.
All right.
We are going to be having an accessibility presentation in July.
All right, that sounds good. And Andrew, our foreign correspondent, are you back? And how can people find out more about you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Arnie Palmer
on there. You can then access my site. This is andrewpalmer.com, and that'll tell you everything about me. And I'm using my iPhone now because my laptop battery went because I forgot to plug it in.
The Chinese government now knows where you are. So there we go. All right, we'll see you next week for another great round table. Thank you, listeners and viewers. We'll see you soon. Bye.
See you, people. Bye. Bye.